Welcome to Chapter 4 of Visualizing Technology. This chapter will identify, explain, and compare hardware components of a computer system. So, Chapter 4 objectives include explaining the functions of a CPU, identifying the parts of a system unit and motherboard, looking at different storage devices, listing and describing common input and output devices, looking at different types of printers, explaining and providing examples of adaptive technology, and talking about important communication devices. So, just as a review, strictly defined, a computer is a data processing device that performs 4 major functions. Do you guys remember what those functions are? We have input, so the computer gathers data or allows us as users to enter data. Process, this is when your machine manipulates, calculates, or organizes that data into information. Output, it displays data and information in a form suitable for the user. And finally, we have storage, which saves data and information for later use. Okay, so remember we talked about data, information, and processing. All right, data is a representation of a fact, figure, or an idea. Data can be a number, it can be a word, a picture, even a recording of a sound. For example, here in our little picture, Zoe is a piece of data. This group of numbers right here is a piece of data. We know that's a phone number, but the machine doesn't necessarily know that. So right now, that's just a little piece of data, okay? Information is data that has been organized or presented in a meaningful fashion. So, when your computer provides you with a contact listing that indicates Zoe Richardson can be reached by phone at 713-555-3297, that data now becomes useful information. Now we know that that is a phone number. Okay? And processing is just the manipulating, calculating, or organizing that data into information. So, just to explain this picture to you, Zoe comes in to get a student ID created. All right, so someone inputs this this data into the machine. Gramercy Street, Houston, 77021. Okay, so right now it's just data. We're just inputting data. Once we put that data into the proper place, okay, it then becomes processed and turns into information. Right, now we know, oh, okay, this is a zip code. Oh, right, this is a city, this is a state, this is a last name, etc. And then our output here is going to be this ID card. Okay, now we see a picture of Zoe, we have her name, her ID number, her address, her phone number. All right, so there's that's what happens after the data is processed. We get this output of information. Software is just a set of computer programs that enables the hardware to perform tasks. There are 2 categories of software: application software and system software. Application software, we've already talked about, and that's the set of programs that helps you carry out tasks like writing a research paper. Okay. System software is a set of programs that enables your computer's hardware devices and application software to work together. The most common type of system software is the operating system, or the OS, and that's the program that controls how your computer system functions. Hardware. Computers use hardware and software to process data into information. Hardware, if I were to ask you, it's just any part of the computer that you can actually physically touch. You can actually hold it in your hands, okay? Software, We don't get to touch the software. Hardware, we can touch it, all right? And there's two different types of hardware devices. We have input devices and we have output devices. And we'll get into those in depth shortly. First of all, let's start talking about the CPU. The central processing unit, you may hear it called CPU or a processor, is sometimes referred to as the brains of the computer because it controls all the functions performed by the computer's other components and processes all the commands issued to it by software instructions. Modern CPUs can perform as many as tens of billions of tasks per second without error, making them extremely powerful components. Billions of tasks per second. It just blows my mind. The central processing unit is housed inside the system unit on the motherboard. Okay? Motherboard is just like a big circuit board. And it's made up of two parts. Okay? The arithmetic logic unit, or the ALU, and the control unit, okay? The CU. The arithmetic logic unit, just as its name suggests, performs all the mathematical and logical operations. The control unit manages the movement of data through the CPU. So working together, these two units execute instructions, perform calculations, and, yes, even make decisions. Okay, so, excuse me, let's get a little bit technical here. We're going to talk about something called a machine cycle, or as your book calls it, an instruction cycle. Okay. This cycle is continuously repeated by the CPU. Another name for it could be the fetch and execute cycle. Okay, so we can stick with machine cycle. And it consists of 4 steps: fetch, decode, execute, and store. Right? During the fetch step, the instruction is retrieved from the main memory. Okay? This instruction is then decoded. So by that we just mean it's translated into a computer command. All right, that's the second step. The ALU, or the arithmetic logic unit, processes this command in the execute step, so our third step right here. Okay. And then the last step, store, simply stores those results back to memory. Okay. So this cycle is continuously repeated by the CPU. This is always, always, always happening. Okay. This is a machine cycle. Fetch, decode, execute, store. The CPU works so fast, it's difficult for us to comprehend, or at least for me to comprehend. Okay. The speed at which the processor executes the machine cycle is called clock speed. The clock speed is measured in gigahertz. Okay. And gigahertz is just a billion cycles per second. Okay. So if your CPU is running at 3 gigahertz, it means that the CPU is executing 3 billion machine cycles per second. Okay. Just as a side note, there's something called overclocking, which means that users can actually go in and modify the clock speed of their processor. So the reason they do this is to make their CPU run faster than it was designed or tested for. Okay. So don't get me wrong, this can't make your, piece of crap machine into something amazing, but it can definitely make it crunch numbers faster for a while. Okay. And a lot of people just do it to say that they can. Okay. But you're welcome to look that up on your own if you want some more information on that. CPU performance. CPU performance can be enhanced in many ways. Multi-core processing. This increases processing speed and reduces energy consumption. Okay, and this happens when 2 or more processors are integrated on one single chip. Okay. Processors have been designed that have 2, 4, 8, even 16 cores. Okay. And then you'll see GPU up there, and GPU stands for Graphics Processing Unit. That's a video card that has its own processor. So if you're a gamer, a GPU is probably an important piece of your machine. You want to have a great GPU so that the graphics are rendered quickly, seamlessly. Takes a lot of power to do that stuff. So here's just a picture so you can get a basic idea of single core versus multi-core. So here we have a CPU. It's just a single core. And really, honestly, you're not going to see too many single core CPUs anymore. And you can see it operates like a pipeline, okay? Here's program 1 in the blue arrow, program 2 is the purple arrow. So it takes in one instruction from program 1, takes in one instruction from program 2, takes another instruction from program 1, takes another instruction from program 2, etc. And as it executes these instructions, they're pushed out into their appropriate areas. Put program 1, it goes with program 1, program 2 goes with program 2. Okay, so if you have 2 cores, or dual core like here, you can see all of this is happening at the same time. Okay, so it's running program 1 here in one core, it's running program 2 here in another core. So you can imagine when you get up to a CPU that has like 16 cores on it, how quickly and powerful your machine will be. Okay. Another way of enhancing performance is something called parallel processing. Okay. And what parallel processing does is it uses multiple processors, okay, or multi-core processors, which divide the work among them and then use something, again, called pipelining. So processor 1 takes the first instruction, okay, fetch, decode, execute, store. Processor 2 takes the second instruction, fetch, decode, execute, store. So these are running in tandem, in parallel, okay, parallel processing. And so, of course, that's also greatly increasing the speed and the power on your machine. Right. And then this is called pipelining. Okay, this is used by a single processor. So it takes in the first instruction. All right. Once that first instruction moves from the fetch stage into the decode stage, the next instruction moves into stage 1. So sort of like an assembly line. Okay. So as this one executes its 4 steps of the machine cycle, this one is executing, okay, now it's on to its 3rd step, this one's on its 2nd step, this one's on its on its 1st step. Okay, so as things go down the pipe, basically, it starts bringing in the instruction 2, instruction 3, instruction 4. So if you have any questions on that, you need me to elaborate, please don't hesitate to ask. That's what we're using our discussion boards for, okay? Or email me, or let's do office hours and we can talk about it more in depth. But that's basically what we have to say for right now about the CPU, which is your central processing unit and the brains of your computer. Next step, we'll be discussing the parts of a system unit and the motherboard. Thank you.